Hey everybody, welcome. We'll just give a minute or so just to let everybody kind of get on and join, and then we'll start from there. So just bear with us. We'll get things going very quickly. You can see slides, okay, Daniel? Yep.
Yep, perfect.
All good. Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. I think that looks to be the majority of people in, so we'll get started, and hopefully we'll be it's usually about 20 minutes to half an hour. We try and keep it to that kind of time frame. So welcome to the third in our Xero Masterclass series of webinars. This one's probably very well timed in relation to the Making Tax Digital requirements that have come into force as of April of this year. So that means that we'll cover it in a bit more detail just in a second, but basically that all kind of VAT registered businesses are now required to comply with the Making Tax Digital strategy that HMRC have in place. For this, it builds on basically the first two. So what you'll see in this webinar is that topics that we've covered in the Masterclass 1 and 2 kind of feed through into this. So we'll kind of sort of explain how you actually arrive at the VAT return. But if you want a bit more detail just in relation to how you actually kind of arrive at this point, you might be better looking at Masterclasses 1 and 2. As I said, in the Masterclass series, we kind of build and try and come to the more advanced features. This is probably one of the more advanced features, as it's a VAT return, and more specifically, it's a Making Tax Digital VAT return. As always, if you have any questions throughout, please just ask. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can. But it does depend on time and things like that. The other thing is, don't worry about having to make notes as we go along. We will send out a copy of the slides and a recording after that. Just before we start, we'll do a bit of an introduction in relation to ourselves, but obviously we're Toast Accountants, and basically if you want to follow us, we are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and now TikTok very recently, our newest one. And I'll just go through now. We'll just get things started and start going through. So my name is Michael Rutherford. I'm a partner at Toast. My background is that I'm a qualified chartered accountant. Prior to that, I did a degree in computer science. So I try and focus more towards the technology side of things and trying to kind of improve business processes and making sure that things are working as efficiently as they possibly can. We have Daniel Doran with us as well, who's our Xero certified advisor at Toast. So knows the Xero system inside out, and any questions that you have, he can handle those for you. So just a very brief introduction, Daniel. I'll do just a very brief introduction on what actual Making Tax Digital is. So it is a HMRC strategy, and it covers all tax heads. So they're trying to digitize the tax process essentially. And what it is it's the keeping of the records electronically or digitally and actually submitting them. So basically the Making Tax Digital strategy is given HMRC kind of real-time information in relation to all of the various tax heads, so whether it's income tax, corporation tax, VAT. So that's a strategy. It's kind of a gradual progression towards it. But basically, I'll hand over to Daniel now, who can give us a bit more detail just in relation to, more specifically, Making Tax Digital for VAT. So Daniel, over to you.
Thanks, Michael. So what is Making Tax Digital for VAT? As Michael said there, it's a key part of the government's plan. They make it easier for individuals and businesses to get their tax right and stay on top of their tax affairs as well. So HMRC, they have an ambition of becoming one of the most digitally advanced tax administrations in the world, and they have a goal of transforming tax administration so that it's more effective and more efficient. And as I said there, they simply make it easier for taxpayers to get their tax right. So
It is a gradual thing to reform the tax system.
yeah,
So it's not to say that it's all coming straight away. They
mhm,
have a roadmap, but
yeah,
yeah, that's the purpose.
yeah. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Michael. Sorry, the next one there, Michael. So as making tax digital for VAT compulsory. 2019 was whenever MTD for VAT was first introduced. And it was introduced for businesses over the VAT threshold of 85 grand.
Yeah.
Which means businesses who have a turnover of 85 grand in any 12-month given period. Whereas now from this month, April 2022, all VAT registered businesses must comply with MTD rules regardless of their turnover, meaning that it could now include businesses who have maybe voluntarily registered for VAT.
So
Um,
just to explain that a bit more fully, there were particular there is a mandatory requirement that if your turnover exceeds 85,000 that you must
yeah,
register for VAT.
yeah,
But there are particular companies that it dependent on their circumstances, it did suit them to register for VAT. So they were exempt from the making tax digital.
mhm,
But now, as of April, like Daniel's saying there, everybody is now caught by the making tax digital requirement. So
yeah,
it was introduced in 2019, but now it's fully in place, and that's the same across all the making tax digital strategies. As it's a gradual progression.
mhm.
Sorry, Daniel.
All good. So if you don't comply with the rules and making tax digital deadlines, then you could face a fine because, as Michael said there, they have a roadmap with all these different things in line. So from January 2023, HMRC are implementing a points-based system. So that MTD for VAT penalties are only going to be given to those who are making mistakes and missing deadlines on a regular occurrence. So that could be good news in a way for some people, because those who make the odd wee error aren't going to be penalised.
Yeah. Whereas
Uh,
in the current one, if you miss a VAT return, you're
it's
penalised
a
more.
straight up penalty. Yep.
Straight penalty. Yeah. Whereas with us, if you do it, they're a bit more flexible because of the kind of more constant interaction with HMRC. So it is a benefit for taxpayers in that way.
Yep. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Michael.
Yep.
So how you can prepare for making tax digital? The rules state that you must keep and maintain all your records digitally, and that you must send your returns through an MTD compatible software. So you can't actually submit your returns through the HMRC website. It has to be through a compatible software. And what I mean by compatible software is a software product, or maybe a set of software products that support the MTD obligations of keeping digital records and exchanging data digitally with HMRC through MTD service. Um, you might also be wondering what records you need to keep digitally, but the records that you need to keep haven't actually changed. It's where and how these records are stored that has changed.
Yeah. And
Um,
just to kind of explain that a bit more fully, is that basically it would be a scan of an invoice, would be a digital record of it.
yeah,
So what we'll show you is kind of how that works within the Xero situation. But that, like Daniel said there, the actual documentation that you have to keep has not changed at all. It's just how it's actually stored. And just
mhm,
in relation to the compatible software, you were able to submit VAT returns via the HMRC gateway previously. HMRC now want a more active link. So they want the actual software itself to communicate directly with the gateway. So it negates the need for you to then go in and rekey what you've done, preparing the VAT return into the HMRC gateway. So again, as somebody who has to do VAT returns, they're trying to make it a much easier process than having to create it in one software package. Maybe potentially take it out in a PDF, use that PDF then to put it into the gateway. I mean, so it's all about kind of saving time and things like that. So that's just to fully explain those 2 points.
yeah, perfect. If you want to move on to the next slide there, Michael, please. So what are the benefits of MTD? Obviously, there is a number of benefits of making tax digital. Otherwise, HMRC wouldn't have went through with the initiative. It makes their lives a lot easier, and more importantly, it makes the lives of taxpayers easier. There was actually research done by HMRC on MTD for VAT, which showed existing participants feel a lot more confident about filing their returns since they were first introduced. And Xero also ran a recent survey as well, where 98% of those surveyed said that they find it easier to prepare and calculate their VAT return. So as you can see there, the main benefits of MTD for VAT include fewer reporting errors, less time spent on paperwork, reliable record keeping, and faster filing of returns. So as well as time saving, one of the other key benefits is improved accuracy, because manual processes can be automated through the software. So transactions are then imported correctly, and then errors can then be automatically identified. And as a result of that, it means that business owners don't have to spend time. They don't have to spend as much time on paperwork, and they have more time then to focus on success within the business.
Yeah. Just, you can imagine if you're submitting a VAT return at 11 o'clock at night and you see an invoice for £1,500 and you're tired, you might key 5,100 as opposed to 1,500, and it's silly mistakes like that just the software avoids. So it's very, very straightforward, and that's what they mean by few errors or fewer errors within the reporting.
Yeah. So if you want to go on to the next slide there, Michael, please. So is Xero compatible with Making Tax Digital? Yes, it is, of course, compliant with Making Tax Digital, and it's recognised by HMRC. There was another survey done by Xero recently as well, where 88% of those surveyed were in agreement that Xero has made Making Tax Digital easy for them. And as well as Making Tax Digital being made easier by Xero, it also makes managing your books in your business much simpler with additional features such as live bank feeds, bank reconciliation, invoicing, and receipt capture. And all these sort of lead up to building your VAT return.
Yeah.
And we covered those features as well in the previous webinars.
Yeah, so it all kind of builds together. And whilst if at the very, very outset when HMRC started with Making Tax Digital, it sounded like extremely complicated and would be very, very difficult to comply with. But as the softwares have evolved, you'll kind of see that it's actually not really as difficult maybe as you would think. You ready for the next slide, Daniel?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So how to file your VAT return online with Xero. So this is where I'll now head on over to Xero, and I'll show you how to, how the MTD VAT return works, how to run your MTD VAT return, how you can attach a file to a transaction within your VAT return, how you can submit your MTD VAT return to HMRC, and then finally how you can view VAT transactions for a custom period.
Yeah. So just before we jump over to the demo company, I wanted to show you just one aspect of it. Because the demo company is not a real company, we can't register it with HMRC for Making Tax Digital, because basically HMRC would wonder what it was. So to show you exactly what it looks like, basically what you'll see here is that there'll be kind of notifications along the top, so kind of news and on VAT or HMRC's updates with regards to VAT. The second box will give you a summary as to what your VAT position is currently with HMRC. So if there's a payment due, obviously it'll appear there. If you're getting a refund, and what payment method you have with HMRC. So that those boxes will change depending on what your VAT status is at the appropriate time. So as this one was as of the 25th of April. And then as you'll see, the third box down, what that actually does is it pulls through the VAT quarters that your business is required. So in this instance, the VAT quarter is running from the 1st of January to the 31st of March, as you'll see, which is due in 11 days time. And so it makes it really easy for you. So it pulls that information through from HMRC to show which, when your VAT returns are actually due. So you don't even have to worry about the date. You can just click review and start your VAT return from there. In the traditional method, you would have to know what your VAT dates were and all those sorts of things. But basically, it will pull through what you're required to do there. So what Daniel will explain in a bit more detail is just if you're on accruals or a cash basis for your VAT returns, you could be on quarterly, or you could even be on monthly VAT returns, depending on what your business is. But the ease of this and connecting it to HMRC or using the MTD aspect of it will mean that you won't even have to worry about your requirements. Xero will actually automatically pull that through from HMRC for you, so you're always kind of pretty sure as to what your requirements are. So we'll proceed on over to the live demo, but as we said, just it does look slightly different in the sense that the demo company isn't registered for making tax digitals, so there'll be slight differences just on that. Do you want to go ahead there, Daniel?
Yep. So how the MTD VAT return works, as Michael said there, before you actually use the MTD VAT return on Xero, you'll have to sign up for MTD for VAT through the HMRC website, and then connect your Xero to HMRC. But we can do that here for you as well.
Yep.
And since you're connected to Xero, then as Michael said again, it pulls through your quarterly periods and the date range is supplied by HMRC. It'll pull through your VAT scheme, which is your cash basis or your accrual basis. So when I say cash basis, it means like when you've actually received the payment, that'll go on the VAT return. Whereas an accrual basis could be like, you could set an invoice out, and then because you've already paid the VAT on it, you might not actually receive it until another 90 days or so.
Yeah.
So
it's just the difference between when the VAT's due. So if VAT will be on an accruals basis, VAT will be due when you raise an invoice. On a cash basis, VAT will be due when you receive payment. So again, it depends on the circumstances of your business. One may be more appropriate than the others for you. And again, it's something that your accountant can advise you on to see which is the correct methodology for you.
Yep, and the VAT return reports on the current period, but it could also pull in later or earlier transactions as well. So it could be like claims, etc. If you want to run the VAT return yourself within Xero, you'll need the advisor or the standard user role. If you want to file the MTD VAT return yourself, you'll need the file MTD VAT returns user permissions rule. And that can be reset within your Xero, and we can do that for you too.
Yeah. So just to cover that again, sorry, Daniel.
Work away.
Within the settings within Xero, if you can't see some of the particular aspects of the MTD for VAT, it may be that you have to look at your user permissions, or whoever is actually administering your Xero software. So, but as Daniel said, we can set you up for that. We can get all those issues kind of out of the way.
So how you actually run your MTD VAT return? From your dashboard, you're going to go to accounting and then VAT return in the drop-down menu. As Michael said there, because the demo company is not actually registered for MTD, it's not going to bring up your quarterly periods, and so I'm going to have to filter the date for my period. So I'll choose the most recent period of January to March.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is what a VAT return will look like for you. It's going to bring up your different boxes. So the boxes won't change. Like the boxes from an actual VAT return without MTD VAT for VAT is going to be the same as your boxes for MTD for VAT. Yep.
Yeah.
If you want to view the transactions by VAT box, you click there, and it'll bring up the individual transactions for each individual transactions for each box. So that first box there, it's going to be your VAT due in the period on sales and other outputs. So that's going to be your the total VAT on your sales for the period. You might notice there that this has a file attached to the transaction, and others don't. you know, because it's a demo company, it doesn't have the files attached to it. Whereas your actual Xero account, you know, if you went through from the start using the Dex software, pulling your invoices in from Dex, and then approving the invoices within Xero, each transaction is going to have a file attached to it. You know, so just say for instance you did want to attach a file, you just click there on add and then select the file down there in the bottom right hand corner.
Okay. But if you're, so just to kind of take it back, and like we were saying earlier, is this builds on the first and second masterclasses that we had.
Yeah.
So the first ones were in relation to how you raise invoices. So if you're raising your invoices from Xero, along that file column that Daniel has displayed there, any invoices that you've raised from Xero will appear there. So you'll be able to click on them. If you just click on that document there, Daniel, and you'll actually see the invoice that they're talking about, or that relates to that transaction. Sorry.
Yeah.
So from there, as you'll see, that's just a random invoice for a company in Arizona, it looks like.
Just whenever you are reviewing your VAT return, then before filing or submitting it, you just want to check that all the details are correct. So all details of the transaction will be displayed on the right, and then you just want to check that the tax rate, the amount, etc., is all correct before you actually go ahead and submit your VAT return.
Yeah, just on a very basic one, you should notice there that on the right hand side, this is for Hamilton Smith Limited, and the VAT's £90. Obviously, if this invoice appeared to that transaction, somebody's put the wrong invoice attached to the wrong transaction. So it was just for demo purposes that we attached the invoice. But like Daniel's saying there, that is what you would be looking for, is to make sure that the figures are correct and that the VAT has come across correctly. So if it's Xero rated for VAT, but it's not taking anything across, if it's 5%, 20%, or if it's an EU sale, that we'll kind of come to that as to what way that's dealt with. But basically, that's what you'd be checking for when you're reviewing a VAT return, is just to make sure all of the figures are correct. Within there.
So then, if you actually want to go ahead and submit that to HMRC, because again, the demo company is not registered for MTD for VAT, it just says there finalize VAT return, and so you would have to then finalize the VAT return and separately send it to HMRC. Whereas if this company was registered for MTD, that button there would say submit to HMRC, where that the VAT return would then just be directly sent to HMRC. So it's that direct link again. So if you wanted to maybe file your VAT return paper based, you could then export it then through an Excel document or a PDF file, and then print it out, of course. But that's if you're living in the Stone Ages.
That's you really, with making tax title, you should really be at a stage where you're able to submit just straight to HMRC, and obviously it's a requirement now. So you'll see from there that obviously Xero makes it particularly easy. But as long as you're raising your invoices and filing your expenses correctly, like we're saying, and it builds on the first and second masterclasses, it will pull all the information through for you to the VAT return. So it'll capture any invoices that you raised in those appropriate VAT periods, and any expenses that you have, and it'll do the correct treatment. Now, just to address what it doesn't do is any of the advisory side. So it doesn't really recognize, now it does it somewhat, but not entirely, but any it doesn't deal with the reverse charges and completely. So if you have EU purchases or sales, then there's generally no VAT. It's offset, and it's captured under the reverse charge there. But there could also be adjustments in relation to some of the either the sales that you're making or the expenses that you're claiming. So some sales attract 20%, the standard, most attract the standard 20%. Some attract 5% VAT, and some are actually fully VAT exempt. So you would need to know, or it need to be set up correctly, that any sales that you're raising are being accounted for on the correct VAT rating. Likewise, on expenses, if you've paid VAT, you need to be sure that it's capturing 20%, or that you've paid 20%, and the 20% is actually due on that expense. To certain services, again, the likes of insurances or medical services, or have reduced rates of VAT, but there are also other aspects where VAT is charged, but you're only entitled to reclaim 50% of it. So the likes of car leases, so there might be VAT on the payments that you're making in respect of a car lease, but only 50% of that can actually go in your VAT return. So there's adjustments and things like that that have to be done. So that's where Xero does bring all the information together, but it's not that it would do it actually completely. So there may still be adjustments and things required once you prepare that. So it just makes it as simple as possible in relation to the invoices and the expenses, puts them all together into one place, and then you can actually then go line by line through it and check that actually the VAT and the sales information and the expenses information are all correct and accurate. So I think that's a quick summary of VAT within Xero, and then the Making Tax Digital aspects of it. Daniel, have you anything else to add to that?
Everything on my end there, Michael. Thanks.
Perfect. Let me just share again.
Yep.
So just before we finish up, just about Toast. So Toast is a totally online accounting services and taxation. So from the very outset, we based it all on technology and all towards making kind of accountancy that bit easier and focusing more on the advice side than kind of counting the numbers and things like that. Our services cover everything as you'll see there. So income tax, annual accounts, corporation tax, payroll, VAT, bookkeeping, everything. So we provide all of those services. As you'll see on the right-hand side, basically what we want to do is keep our pricing clear and transparent. We cover a wide range of industries, so we have clients across the whole spectrum. And basically what we are trying to do is give business owners real-time access to their information so that they can make informed business decisions. So the more accurate the information you have is, the quicker that you can react to any issues within the business or particular things like that. So the better your information is, the more of an informed decision that you can make. Obviously, we're regulated by Chartered Accountants Ireland, so professional accountancy services, and you can be sure that it's always kind of top quality advice, let's say. As we said, half an hour. I think we're just on the half-hour mark there. So as we said at the outset, sorry we didn't get to any of the questions, but if you do have any questions or you would like to book a free consultation, you can visit our website, which is toast.tax, or we're available on all the various different social media platforms. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the usuals. And as I said, you can book a free consultation straight from the website. You just pick a date and time, and that's all completely free. Thank you very much for attending, and we'll be back with another Xero Masterclass series shortly.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye.